All right, I wanted to share a little bit today about the nature of self-sabotage and overcoming that with Jesus. A lot of times I see people every day on a regular basis feeling so condemned and walking in a place of feeling like they are living out the lifestyle manifestation of Romans 7. Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt like, I don't know why I don't do the things I want to do? And I want to jump into that just a minute because I've seen so many people bound up by condemnation and bound by wondering why they can't overcome the things that they want to overcome, or they can't step into, maybe you resonate with this, where you have a goal, a dream, you have some habits you'd like to change, or you have some things that you'd like to move towards, and you feel like, I just tend to sabotage myself in that journey. Anyone ever been there? I know I certainly have. Well, my friends, you're not alone. I believe that when Paul shared in Romans 7, that he was actually sharing a story of the journey that many Christians go on and feel. But what we don't realize that it was actually an aside message that he was sharing in between Romans 6 and Romans 8. He was sharing that in Romans 6 that we were buried completely with Christ, that everything that Jesus paid for on the cross was paid for in that moment, forever, for eternity, for you and for me, for all our bad behaviors, for all our inability to come into alignment to do the things we want to do. He purchased that, he bought it, and we were buried with him. And then we come to Romans 8, and it says, at the very beginning of that, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And so why do we end up feeling this identity crisis of, I just end up self-sabotaging? Well, as you know, I like to come at things from a perspective of how we're actually wired by God to do things and to be who we are. And there's a lot of times we come into this place of intense condemnation where we're going, why can't I do the things I want to do? Just like Romans 7 says. But we know that that Romans 7 person was buried with Christ and resurrection, and you've been made new. The Bible says that all things have been made new. You have been made new in all ways, in all things. But if we don't believe that, if we believe that I'm still the old person and I have this wrestle happening, then we will definitely wrestle and we will walk out the capacity and the fullness of all that we believe, okay? But I also want to talk about how we're wired as human beings in the way that God created us. So there's a mixture of things happening here. One is, do you believe that Romans 6 and Romans 8 are true? That's a starting point. We need to start there. We need to start with, have you fully been buried with Christ and raised with him and made new? And have you walked out Romans 8, where you are walking in communion with the Holy Spirit? There, you're living out no condemnation, and you are being led by him as your Father. The Father says our spirits cry out, Abba, Father. And you're walking with Jesus, living fully inside of you. In Romans 8, it also talks about the resurrection life of Jesus flowing inside of us. So, one, we start with our belief. Do I believe that my old man has been buried? Do I believe that I have the newness and I can walk out this walk? But I also want to walk out this journey of, our brains are wired to see things a certain way, to experience things a certain way. Our nervous system is wired to keep us safe. And it's wired that way by God, okay? So when you are doing something new, trying to break an old habit, trying to step into something new, you come at this crossroads. And I like to liken it as the old man and new man, but not in the way that my old man has been buried and my new man has been resurrected, brought to life by Jesus. So our old sinful nature has been buried and dead and gone, and it only comes to life when I bring it to life and I keep thinking about it and believing that it still has power over me. There's a couple other things on that. There's a lot behind that, and I'm not going into a theological discussion on that nature. But we have to start with that belief. We have to start there and encounter Jesus, the one who loves us and paid every price for us first. And then we can come into this journey of realizing that anytime I want to create a new habit or step into a new behavior or step into something new, my body, my brain, my heart have to step into a new place of realizing that it's new. And if you have an association internally that new things are scary, or I'm not sure how I feel about that process or that journey, or the old actually feels comfortable, even when the old is bad, it can feel comfortable and it can feel safe, right? We are all familiar with the story of the Israelites as they left Egypt. They had 400 years in their memory, in their family line, in their history of slavery, in an environment that they actually didn't start out as slaves. They were actually owners of the land. That is the craziest story. They were owners of the land, and it was only because the Pharaoh got afraid of their growth and expansion that they began treating them as slaves, and they just became slaves. They weren't even purchased or slaves to begin with, but they went along with the belief, and even though they had more people and could overpower, they lived out a mentality and belief of slavery for 400 years until God came to redeem them. That's a long time to live in slavery, and some of you might have experienced slavery in different areas of your life. Maybe slavery to a way of eating, slavery to a way of thinking, slavery to a way of feeling. Even a way of feeling anxious can make us feel like I'm just familiar with that feeling. And so I want to get free from it, but I also am familiar with it. And let me give you an example. Several years ago in the journey of healing, and we're all on a journey of healing, I had this revelation that I think that part of me is addicted to chaos. And I had that revelation because I was going through so much healing that chaos, stress, didn't feel good anymore. It felt like foreign to me. But I started noticing the pattern that when I was entering into a state of peace and things were in a good state in my life, I would recreate a pattern of chaos in some area, whether it be health or finances or aligning with jobs or just even my thought life. If it was too peaceful, which I really enjoyed personally, I would start creating chaos unintentionally because there was a familiarity to it. Okay? Pretty wild, right? And I had to intentionally say, I do not want that anymore, become aware of it, and realize that, hey, the old me was very comfortable in a state of chaos or intensity or a stressful life. And the new me is bridging this gap, so to speak, as the Israelites came out of Egypt and they spent all this time in the wilderness. What if a lot of that time in the wilderness, they were rewiring their brains to a personal relationship and dynamic of a God who loves them and sees them, who literally provided food and finances and everything they needed for 40 years? And there was a new generation who no longer had the imprint and the memory of slavery in their system, and now had a memory of a God who always provides, of a God who sets me free, of a God who miraculously supplies all of my need. And many of us, we need that new connection to God in our system. Our nervous system needs to connect with God as the God who is with me now in a new season. And I don't need to revert back to that old way to keep safe. Ooh. But we need to have compassion on ourselves in that in-between, in that journey. Because we have to realize that a part of us, even if it's chaotic, even if it's intense, even if it's painful, a part of us feels comfortable and safe there. And we're creatures who do not really like change. We like safety. Internally, this is how we're wired. We are wired, our brain, our body, our heart, they want to feel safe. And that's where leaning into scriptures and passages where you realize and recognize the imprint of God being your refuge begins to become so vital and important when you're in the middle of a season of transition or a season of healing or a season of change. Now, I use that every time because God is always, hopefully, if you are walking with God, you're always going onward and upward. You're always coming up to a new place and a new height. And in those processes, your nervous system, your brain, your heart are coming to these places saying, is this safe? Is this safe? Can I trust this? And what it's doing, this is where it likens back to the Israelites. What it's doing in that moment under the surface is it's looking back, your hippocampus and your amygdala and your thalamus and your brain, your limbic system, they're all looking at your hippocampus specifically back here. It's looking for memories to look for where in my life can I liken this to? And is moving forward in this area safe? So even if you know, oh, God told me to do this, or God's leading me in this way, or even if you know, I want to leave that old pattern behind, I want to leave that pain behind, and yet you feel like, I can't really leave that behind, your brain is searching and going, I don't think I have a good reason to leave that behind. I have a good reason to keep it because I'm familiar with it. It keeps me safe. Whoa. And when you can realize that, then you can take this thing and you can go, I see you. I see that all you're trying to do is keep me safe. You can have compassion on yourself in those moments. And you can instead go, I'm not going to judge myself. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to get frustrated because in those moments, you can't move forward at all. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it and I'm going to go, hey, I hear you. I hear that you want to keep me safe, but I can move forward and we can be safe moving forward. We're going to set this aside and we're going to receive truth from Jesus. We're going to receive truth from the Word of God. We're going to also, practically speaking, look at other areas of your life where moving forward, releasing old things and moving forward actually was a good thing. Because see, what's happening is a lot of times your brain is searching through memories that you don't need to look at. They're the painful memories because your brain's looking at the lens of negativity bias, or if you will, but it's really looking at the memories that's saying those weren't super safe and that movement forward wasn't helpful. So what you get to do is intentionally feed it the memories where you did overcome and where leaving that behind actually ended up in victory and greater healing. And just like in the Old Testament, every time they received a victory, every time they achieved a victory, God always said, hey, set up an altar here to remember the victory that the Lord your God brought you through this battle. It's not just about having, a pile of rocks that says, great, we won. It's about training your brain to look for the victories. It's about training your heart and your nervous system to always see it and always look at, oh yeah, that's right. My God gave me victory. my God gives me victory when I come to challenges, so that the next challenge you come to, you now have an absolute statement that says, my God will do it again. I can do it again. I can partner with him and overcome this again. I can partner with him and move forward again, because he's done it before in the past. He will do it again in the future. And what you want to do is begin retraining your brain, retraining your heart and your nervous system, your body responses, to be able to look for the ways that leaving those things behind, stepping into new things, actually worked for you. And I always say this, you hear me say this regularly, if you can't find anything, if you go, I've never overcome anything before in my life, if you are able to listen to this and understand the words coming out of my mouth, then you certainly overcame the ability to not be able to speak, because when you were a baby, you could not understand language and you couldn't speak. And so if you are hearing it, then that means you trained your brain to hear words and understand them. If you walk, then that means you trained your body to be able to overcome falling over and over again, and you started walking. We start with the basics. We look at the basic things. Did you graduate from school? Did you overcome challenges? We start at those places, okay? And find them. List out as many as you can and have images of them. There's a statement, I don't know where it came from at this moment, but the law of dominant images. You will only go so far as the dominant images in your mind. I like to connect that with Ephesians 3:20. God will do more than you ask or imagine. So what are you imagining in your brain as you look at moving that stuff out of you, the leaving the past behind that was painful and keeping the past that's good, and then moving forward? Where do those self-sabotage is generally a way of keeping you safe. Believe it or not, it is actually a way of your brain, your body, your nervous system keeping you safe. It's saying, oh, you know what, if we do that, oh, it's just not safe. I don't want to lose this feeling. I don't want to lose the connection to this. So let's just cover it up. Let's just do that. And like I said, with the chaos component, a lot of times chaos for me would show up as sabotaging something that was even good, and I would go, oh, but if I step into that goodness, I'm leaving chaos behind. And there is a part of me that felt good in chaos. Not anymore, but there was a season that when I was recognizing it, I could see it. And I had to walk myself through that and go, oh, I see what's happening. Gotcha. I have compassion, but I don't have to step into it anymore. And so take a look at those areas. Take a look at the places that you tend to either self-sabotage or just not give up those things or not take steps forward, or you kind of just go, man, there's this inner battle happening. Look at what area is trying to keep you safe. What are you trying to be safe from? Or what are you living safe in? What do I mean by that? Well, maybe, like I was using the example of anxiety or this feeling of chaos or slavery like the Egyptians, what are you feeling safe in that you're not ready to give up yet? Or what is the safety keeping you moving forward into? A lot of times we were looking to move forward. Anytime we're kind of in that head-to-head with ourselves, there's something that God is calling us into, maybe greater wholeness, stepping into more of the promises that he has, greater healing, greater breakthrough. And if you notice that you're self-sabotaging yourself in those moments, asking the question, the practical question, what am I keeping myself safe from? And maybe there's an underlying dialogue that, you know what, at this point in time in my life, I tried doing something like this before and it didn't work out. Okay, can you find another time in your life that you can use as a new anchor that you anchor yourself to in moving forward in this season? And those are two very simple steps to help heal and bring breakthrough to self-sabotage with the Lord. So just asking him, Oh God, is there anywhere that I am trying to keep myself safe, or an area of familiarity that I'm not quite ready to give up yet? Remember, have compassion on yourself in the journey, okay? There's so much compassion. You realize your brain, your heart, your body, just trying to do their job. Just trying to do their job. And if you can give them something new to anchor into, going, okay, Jesus, I give all of that over to you. What now do you want me to look at? What are the new anchors? What are the new beliefs? And how can we move forward together in this season? All right, you guys, God bless. I hope this ministers to you. I'd love to hear, what's God speaking to you and what are you overcoming? Put that down in the comments. I would love to hear from you. God bless you guys. Until next time.